going to call this select board meeting January 6th to order. Welcome everyone. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think I don't have an agenda. No? It was right on the top.
I have two of them.
Maybe that's one.
No, I picked one up over there.
I got one. I mean, she gave me one, but there it is. See?
Jeez, we're just starting and you're losing everything already.
Yes.
Okay, public participation. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say?
Less than 3
Go ahead.
minutes.
I'll try to keep it.
No, I'm kidding. No, you don't have to keep it under 3 minutes. As we said last week, it's just a placeholder.
I wanted to talk about the freezing of the grid.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what it is that the board's trying to do, obviously, but I really think that could be a mistake because of how messed up the grid was before. We did what we did to straighten it out, and I think that freezing it, I'm really afraid that it could be a big mistake. And I also think that a hiring freeze could be a mistake because the board has the power to say, we're not going to hire anyway. You have the final word, so I don't think that a freeze would be necessary. And I'm afraid that it's going to come back to make it more difficult, or it could make you look foolish if you have to hire somebody in the future. And that's my opinion of.
It's a good one because, I mean, we don't know if we have to, for an emergency type of thing, but.
I actually was going to bring that back up again tonight because when we made the decision to freeze the grid and everything, we didn't know what we were dealing with.
Right.
And wanted to make sure that people living in this community know that we're doing everything we can to keep costs down.
Yeah,
we have negotiated a very, very good deal with Vermont Yankee, and I was going to bring back up the grid tonight on old business, unfinished business. And we were going to rediscuss that because that is a true issue that I've been concerned about because the grid has always been something that, how many times when we served on the select board together did I say, you got to stop playing with the grid. If you want the grid to work, the grid's the grid's the grid.
The grid is the grid, and it shouldn't have to be touched by human hands. It should take care of itself. And that,
We've
at
all
least
been
that
thinking
was
about
the
it,
intent when we worked on the grid, was that we set it up so that it would take care of itself and that we would never have to deal with it again, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that number one, you're talking about people who have worked 4.5 years waiting for their raise, and it really would be unfair. I do think that we probably will discuss the hiring freeze later. We'd be discussing both of them together anyway. But I think your point, especially about the grid, is very well taken, and I thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Think about it.
Okay. We don't have any addition. I'm sorry, Mario. You know what? If you move over a little bit, you're behind the pole, so I can't see you.
You're just trying to hide.
I just have to ask, like you said, you have good hearing. The Vermont Yankee Mtg agreement, what does that have to do with? What kind of agreement are we speaking of?
We have reached an agreement on a tax agreement for 1 year, and we will be discussing that at that time when it's on the agenda. We did negotiate with Vermont Yankee. They were wonderful to deal with. We negotiated an excellent deal. That's going to give us 1 year of trying to figure out where we go from here, and then we will go into a longer term 5 to 10 year agreement, and there'll always be some taxes paid by Vermont Yankee because there'll always be property there.
Mhm.
But we will go in a longer term agreement, so we have a little better idea of what our future is going to look like from year to year.
Right, so it's just the 1 year then?
It's just the 1 year.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Very few remarks today. Todd, who's on the agenda for tonight with his budget, is not going to be here because the fire department was busy today helping Dummerston, and we thank the fire department for their help to our neighboring communities. Also, I'd like to remark on this horrible storm we had this week. I know if any of you drove outside of Vernon, you know that the roads in our town are just, they do such a great job. They do an excellent job. And, everybody, there's always a little complaint here and a little complaint there, but I certainly wouldn't want to be out there at 3 o'clock in the morning plowing the roads the way they do. And so I want to thank the road crew for keeping us all safe and keeping our roads passable so that we could go where we needed to go through the storm. And this is our first meeting of the new year. So I want to wish everybody a very happy new year and the best of everything, health, happiness, and prosperity to all of our citizens. That's it. Approval of minutes, please.
Okay, November 12th, I can't approve.
No, you weren't
You
there.
guys, right, yeah, yes.
Can I have a motion from Jeff, Sandy, or Janet to approve?
I move that we approve the select board meetings for November 12th, 2013 as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 12th as submitted. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think the other...
Abstain. Abstain.
She got that, I'm sure. The December 2nd and 16th we can do together if Sandy or Sandy or Chris.
Yeah.
No, we can't do them together, sorry.
December 2nd.
Sandy, December 2nd,
I move that we accept them as presented.
Chris,
Yes.
second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes of December 2nd as printed. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And December 16th, Chris?
I move that we accept the minutes of December 16th as written.
Second.
I just noticed in here that, I noticed before that Suzanne the Liberty's name is spelled incorrectly.
Did I not get them all?
Well, in the copy I have, that it's L.A. I don't know.
Oh, I did correct them.
Okay.
The copy they have is corrected.
And I had mentioned too that in here it has that I stated that I would have liked to have had the fence on 2 separate contracts. It just may be me, but I would have liked to have seen in there that the contract was addressed to the cemetery committee, but the cemetery committee never saw the contract. And it may just be.
I don't remember
She
that.
did say
Did
that.
you say it?
You did say that.
Might
I
have
remember
been,
you
but-
saying that.
Okay, so made a motion, well, who seconded, I'll put it as, I'll change maybe as corrected.
Jeff Dunkley seconded it.
Seconded.
I'll make that friendly poo-poo or whatever.
As corrected.
Yep.
She was.
And it was it was addressed to the cemetery committee.
Cemetery committee, but she never saw it. The
Committee.
Yeah. Because I remember her saying that.
You need to add her back in. She's got the, on page 7.
Yeah, Katrina,
Yeah,
on page 7, you have Suzanne's name, but she's not in the present,
oh, okay,
so that needs to be added in.
Yeah.
got it.
Okay, so it's as corrected.
Yep.
I need a second by Jeff. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 16th as corrected. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, December 10th.
I move that we...
You weren't on, sorry. no,
Yeah,
you
the
weren't.
10th, I think I was there, yeah.
You are.
I move that we approve the minutes of the December 10th budget workshop as presented.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 10th budget workshop as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and as I said earlier, Todd's not going to be here tonight because of the fire, so
So will he be on tomorrow?
he's going to be on tomorrow night, yeah.
I told him that he'll be now the last one.
Last one, right. So we'll go right to Susan. Do you want to come up, or you're more comfortable back there?
I can just talk right here.
Okay.
Doesn't pick up well from
I
here.
just wondered if any of you had thought, we were supposed to have had a meeting in September, or we talked about having a meeting in September and tried to work out some of the wrinkles, and one of the wrinkles being giving them a longer time to get their verifications done with the schools. And I had sent in your letter, I have a copy of it here, when I sent their acceptance things, I had wrote that we were going to try to have a meeting, so of course I've got everybody calling me, well, what did you change, what did you change? I said, well, they haven't really changed anything, but I was hoping that I could get the board to, if you can, agree to give us a longer time to get the verifications done. And another problem I'm having with verifications is, I did with UVM today, is that they won't just let them fax them to them, or they want face-to-face or whatever because of...
They want to make sure it's actually the student.
Yeah, Johnson State, we faxed one up, right back it came, so I guess it's the school.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing, I guess, that I was hoping that maybe we could get a little bit longer time.
Yeah, the problem is when we researched it, according to the policy, the date is actually done at town meeting in an article. So the voters have already voted for that date. Now, we certainly can look at it and next town meeting put an article in that gives them a longer expanded date. I'm not sure. I think you have a little bit of leeway as the town clerk.
I don't think so. It says it right in the guidelines, right here. And I wish we could change it, but we can't, because I went studying it, and you can't. It says by the town clerk, January 15th, and that's it. If they don't, they don't get it.
Then probably what I'm going to push, as long as we're going to go by what's right here, is the other forms of verification instead of just the verification.
No, it says either or. I mean, it doesn't say you have to have them. It's acceptable forms are.
But we had talked that we would get it down to, it should be easy enough for them to get the one form.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. You can make that decision.
Well, no, I'm not sure I can, because it's in the things.
No, it says acceptable forms of verifications are verification form provided by the town clerk, a student grade. Now that means it's a either or.
Right. Oh, yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you don't have to say all of these. They have to turn in all of these to be accepted.
Okay.
You can make that choice of which one you want, either the town clerk one that you make up or any one of those.
Right, okay.
So.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page,
Yep.
because we had talked about that.
Yeah, and I really think that when we write the article this year, we should expand that date, because
Yes.
as we talked about, it's tough because kids are home for a Christmas break, and that's when all the paperwork needs to be signed.
So what has to happen is we need to accept the guidelines as amended
Yes.
before town meeting so that it has time to get into warning. So we need to work on that so that she can have that. But we can't just put an article in to change that. It has to change the whole guidelines.
Right?
Right.
I'm not sure if this is the year we have to do it anyway, but it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
If you-
So
I think
you should
that-
if you could be thinking about a date that makes sense, then
Well,
I think the 30th or 31st of
Whenever
January.
the schools, I'm not that familiar with college.
Well, I know
life,
that
but when the
Letitia
schools-
used to have a hard time getting that thing in there on the 15th every year. I mean, it's a hard day.
Right.
Right.
and some don't go back till the end now. They're
Right.
really weird semesters.
Yeah,
so
I'm
it
trying
could
to
be
think
Because
the
I know we had to
January.
go over while she was on vacation to get the signature and get the verification form and signed. And
The other question that we talked about quite a bit at the the meeting that we did have was, should the check go to the parents or should the check go to the school?
I thought we had changed it so the check went to the school.
It went to the students.
To the
Yeah, we
students.
changed it the other way, so it went to the students.
Becomes
We
students,
had problems
changing
when we
the-
did
Here.
student/school. It really was messy.
It was bad.
So, and a lot of parents have already paid, because
Mm.
they've paid the second semester bill prior to the verifications coming in too. So I don't know, because I don't know what the issue is with having it go to the.
I don't exactly, I wish I could remember. I should have got the minutes.
There was issues because
issues.
some students didn't actually
Go to
return
school
to school.
and
That was
didn't
one of the
return the
issues.
Oh.
They didn't actually return to school, and then they got the check,
There was-
and there
in
was
that
no
audit
refund back
thing.
to.
Yep.
But the schools should, even if the parents have paid tuition, if a scholarship comes in, the parent gets reimbursed for that tuition, don't they? Or
Not
it applies to the next
necessarily.
semester?
But see, that's the issue. If
Yeah.
you're
It goes to
paying,
the student, trust me.
it will be applied to the next
I know.
semester. But if it's for the spring semester that they've already paid, they're not gonna get any credit for that till the following fall.
So I wasn't quite sure where that fell.
No, it goes to the student's
And it's hard
name.
because every school is so different.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
That's-
mine got applied
Yeah.
to the next year's tuition.
Which is fine, but what if you're January, your senior year?
Right.
You don't have a next year's
Right.
tuition.
What if you go to another school?
You ask for it, you ask for reimbursement.
I don't know, mine,
She's always
mine
got it
reduced
and
the
used
amount
it
of
for
finance,
books and-
like,
or
so the
reimburse
Parent
me
Plus
or
loan,
whatever.
mine got reduced by the amount of any additional scholarships
But
we
again,
put
every
in.
school is.
But every school is
And also
different.
their
Right.
accounting practices
That's
I never
differently.
seen books
Yes.
$300-400
That's
a
what we
piece.
found. We have found a lot of uncashed checks for months and months and, so that's why we asked to have it go to the student. Because if we're getting verification, then that should be what we get.
That's
and
all we
if
need.
can, yeah.
Bobby?
An insurance company, in order for the funds to go to the proper place, their checks will be made out to not only to the person or the owner, but also to the company or business. And if you did that, it would be an inconvenience. They'd have to send it to the school to get it signed, or go there and get it signed.
That's what
Trust
we
me,
used to do.
yes, that's exactly what used to
And the
happen. It was,
Definitely
it was bad.
To
make it
sign
go to the right place.
Yeah.
So it would go to the school, and then they'd have to get in touch with the student to come have them sign. And there was one school that had more than one of the same persons. They didn't, so they
I
sat
know.
on it because they didn't know which Kate, whatever it was, or however that
Social
worked.
Security.
Yeah, you don't want to put that
You
on
don't wanna
checks.
put that on
though.
a check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just not easy to figure out because of the fact that every school is so different. I mean, has there been a lot of abuse to
No,
where
but
checks
I
were
do
sent
have
out?
Some strange things coming back already, like one that didn't go, but they're putting in for the spring. Yeah, they put in for the fall, so it's gonna change the money. I mean, they're kind of, some of them mixed up,
Well,
with that, so it's gonna take some.
Is that because they get scholarships?
That's because
For
they messed
financial
up and
need?
didn't go to school when they're supposed to.
Oh, okay.
well,
Yes, no, we
I guess
have
you're gonna
that
have to, yeah,
prorate.
yep, you're gonna really have to watch that, I guess. I don't know.
So I guess that's what we were trying to do, is to simplify it a little bit and put it more on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Because it's their responsibility, kind of.
Absolutely.
It-
I wonder
agree,
though, if we extend the time, if that'll alleviate a lot of that problem,
That's what I
because,
was wondering too.
right, even if we extended it till February 15th, kids go back to school mid-January, that gives them a
There's no
month.
excuse
Th-
then.
They're
Yeah.
in school then.
Right.
Before the school even signs it, they're in school for that
So
semester.
if they didn't
And then if they
return,
don't go
no.
back,
Right.
they don't get the check.
Right. So I think that
But
might
how do
be
you
the
know?
easiest way to solve it.
Does it,
Get the verification.
Yes.
Right.
It says there.
Oh, that's right.
Right. And they're already in class
Yes.
when they go get
And
that
the schools that
verification.
don't give the verification freely like they used to.
Yeah.
They can give us a bill or something and show.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll work on exchanging, I mean, you're the one who deals with it, so you know better than I would what would be a good date. But we certainly can put that in as an article and try to correct it that way. Okay? Thank you.
Maybe we could put it on our agenda for next meeting, so then, if you have the guidelines changed by then, proposed, then we could approve it, because you have to approve it before it goes to the town.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right, Dale?
Well, I'm really hopeful that the other members who weren't here last time had a chance to read, I think, a most excellent article about this, CAP, the model that was done at Wiscasset. And then we were going to come before the select board to see, what your wishes and desires were. We understand that you guys certainly have the authority to create the CAP. I think there is some misinformation out there that the CAP would stick its nose in the financial affairs and negotiations, which is completely false. I don't know where that ever came about.
I didn't hear that.
No, I didn't either.
But,
No, never heard that.
But if you've had a chance to read this, you can really understand and the purpose, the formation, and the value of what the CAP would bring to this surrounding area. Because, quite honestly, up in Maine, they brought in some of the what I would refer to as the clamshell alliance people who were not. They were all anti-nukes, really, from the get-go, up there. And it really brought everybody together to really trust the nuclear industry in a much greater way, and really for people to understand what the decommissioning process is all about. So I guess, having said that brief opening remark, I would open the door to the chair to say, okay, what have you guys decided or come up with, or what are your feelings about this whole process?
Are you saying open it up for me to ask you what you've come up with, or are you saying open it up? The way you said that, you confused me.
I'm opening the door to ask you
haven't spoken on it.
what your feelings are and where you guys as a board stand on the formation of a CAP.
Have you discussed this at all at Planning Commission?
We've discussed it because it's in the resiliency plan.
But, I mean, have you come up with an idea of what you think a CAP should look like as on the Planning Commission?
Well, I don't think we've discussed it any more than just general terms, that the CAP is in there. And are you asking me, have we even talked about
It's
who would be
on our
the
next
meeting?
agenda for this Thursday. We were going to get someone from the WRC to come in. He's not going to be able to make it. I don't know how far we can get with the discussion, because other than, the information we get from Wiscasset and some other plants, none of us have ever formed a CAP or looked at getting a CAP formed, or if it should be the plant that forms it. I don't know. Like Wiscasset, it was a plant that formed it, but they're a different type of plant than this one is.
We're
Okay,
emerging,
they-
they're not.
Right.
I wasn't at the last meeting. I
They
apologize,
formed
but I
it
did
primarily
read it.
because,
Right.
the people that are buying the electricity are helping to pay for part of the decommissioning. So that's part of the reason why they're doing it. So I don't know if Vermont Yankee would ever do that or not. I don't know.
Well, the difference, and I guess this is what confuses me about having a CAP. If we're going to have a committee formed to look at decommissioning, how the plant's going to decommission and be part of that conversation, I understand that. But where Maine and Wisconsin and even Rowe had a CAP as utility-owned plants, that was paid for by the ratepayer. If we were to do one, if there was a cost involved, we would expect it to be paid for by the plant. Now, I think that the state has one-upped us already, because they've already negotiated the safe store, they've negotiated the decommissioning of the plant, they've negotiated the $2 million that's going to SEVCA, SEVIDS, for economic development. They've negotiated the 5.2 that's going to go for renewable energy jobs in Windham County. And now, even though that they've negotiated all of this and there's an agreement, and Vermont Yankee's paying millions and millions of dollars for all of this, now the legislature's already starting to say, well, we don't want that money to go there. So it's almost like it's taken off of our plate, like we don't have any control over it. So I was looking at it, and I'm only speaking for myself, we have a whole board here,
We
but
haven't had a chance to discuss
we
this
haven't
as a
discussed
board
this
yet.
as a board yet, but I was looking at it more as the way we can find, I think, our town people being more useful is to try to work with those organizations that are getting the money. So Sevitz is getting $2 million for economic development. We already have a member from our town that's on the Sevitz board. So would we be better off utilizing that member to say, okay, you know, the town of Vernon is the reason why that $2 million is coming down here. So when economic development's being discussed, town of Vernon needs to be up here in that discussion. And then form a committee of all of those different groups. So Steve is already on Wyndham Regional. So he would be the perfect person, because Wyndham Regional is also getting money too.
Yeah.
So he'd be the perfect person to sit on that committee. He's already got the workings of Wyndham Regional. He's already made the connections in Wyndham Regional. So for him to sit on that committee and deal with the discussions that go around the closing of Vermont Yankee on Wyndham Regional, he'd be a member of that committee too. So now you get those two members who are serving on separate offshoot committees that are going on to try to do economic development. Now, the next issue we have is the labor market. Now, we've already met with people from the Labor Board. They're also working with Sevitz to identify jobs, and they're also working with the plant, with Human Resources. They're going to be having job fairs and stuff at Vermont Yankee to try to find jobs, regional jobs, not just jobs in Vermont, but they're working with New Hampshire and Massachusetts Department of Labor to try to identify where jobs would be. So now we get a community person who maybe is an HR person or has an understanding of hiring and stuff like that, and get them on a committee working with those groups. And then when we have community action plan meetings, we actually have people who are serving on these subcommittees where the money's going. Because, face it, we could go to Entergy and say we want more money, but they're already giving all the money to the state. So we're not going to get money for that. And we don't have a real economic development organization already in our town. It's in Brattleboro. So, you know, I'm kind of looking at it, is that the best way, best direction for us to go so that we can do the most work in the shortest amount of time?
And I hear everything you're saying, and I don't, in my perception, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, though, that we're not looking to get involved, you know, even in that part of it there. Most specifically to the plant, if you go back to the Wiscasset study, they talked about questions that came out about, you know, the fuel storage, the spent fuel storage, talked about the reusability of the site. Now, Steve has been in our meetings numerous times, and we all know this is like one of the smallest plants in operation in the United States, so the feasibility and usability of a lot of this to go from a brownfield to a greenfield is quite small. But I think more importantly, Patty, you know, that is the information that the surrounding communities, not just Vernon, but, you know, Brattleboro, all the communities that are affected, even Keene, you know, is affected greatly by the closure. I mean, we all seen the numbers of the people losing jobs that are affected by this. The average citizen, you know, and we're only aware of this because of Steve's involvement, you know, having worked there for 40-something years and giving us information, but has no idea about what's going to transpire, you know, even at the, you know, for the period of time that it's going to take to cool down the material so they can handle it safely, so that they can, what's going to become of the buildings and what process and usability and all of this stuff. And so I guess I see the CAP more as a model for, you know, information and dissemination. What they did at Wiscasset, they actually created a website, you know, that talked about all these things that the citizens need to know that are so much in the dark. Now, whether they choose to inform themselves or not is not, but there's a mechanism to get the information out there. I think that would be a, you know, a very valuable part, you know, for the people of the surrounding area. Now, I know I keep referring to this, but they did an incredible amount of training for the CAP members in this particular study so that the people really were understanding what was going on in the nuclear industry. I'm not expecting that out of VY, certainly, you know, in the financial aspects. But I do think outside of the realms that you just discussed, I think there would be a place, and, you know, as you had started out, you know, with just a group of us here many, many months ago before we realized that somehow the doors were going to close quicker than we thought, there is a place for, you know, a CAP. And I really believe that it would be helpful and serve the community to say, we're being proactive, to get the information out there, to earn the, you know, just the trust of the average citizen out there in the street. That's really my sole, you know, desire in seeing something formed so that people have a place to go to, and nonetheless, accurate information actually is put out there, because we all know, you know, that crazy things happen, just, oh, I heard this guy say that, or whatever. So I think if there's an accurate place for people to dispense information out there, I think it'd be a great thing to do. But I also realize, too, that it's going to take some committed people to make the meetings on a regular basis, to have a rudimentary, elementary educational background so that they know what they're talking about. And it's probably going to involve a modicum of funds, you know, to at least train these people, to bring them up to speed, or if people have that ability to get the information. But I just think it would be a good thing, you know, and that's what I'm asking you guys. I don't know, you know, if we even envisioned, you know, when we talked about in our planning commission meeting about being involved in all these different organizations and seeing the disposal of funds and all this other stuff. It really wasn't our intent to have a fiduciary, you know, finger on the pie. It was more to just to kind of get it out there so people, you know, could trust the nuclear industry again, because we all know that a lot of them don't. So I would offer that to you to think about, you know. And
We haven't discussed it yet. That's the thing. We need to set up a meeting and, you know, take what you're saying to us under advisory, and how, you know, and talk amongst ourselves and see what we need to do. I'm not saying it's a bad idea at all. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but we need to discuss it. And that's, I mean, we can stand here and say good things this side and bad things that side, but, you know, we got to talk about it, and we haven't set it up on an agenda yet. And you know, that we need to do, and I think that it is important to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot of information here. Of course, the town that we are, it's going to be a little more organic to our town. You know, we're not going to set everything up or be a mirror image to this one. Mm-hmm. But I just want to, you know, point out some of the people that are on their cap. Well, 3 seats on the panel. They have 13 people on their cap seat. 3 seats on the panel are determined by position. Okay, so state senator of the you know, from Lincoln County, Wiscasset town planner, and Maine Yankee representative, president or designee. Wiscasset Selectmen, Maine Radiological Emergency Preparedness Committee, Friends of the Coast, which is the, you know, the
Clamshell
Alliance, Lincoln County Commissioners, Regional and Local Businesses.
I've never heard them called that.
Greenpeace or something. What are they called?
I call them antis.
Regional and Local Business Associate Directors and Maine Yankee each appointed one person from each one of those groups. And the governor also sent a liaison. So it's, you know, it's not just people in this town, but people in surrounding parts of the town, business people, people that have a leg up on
It has to be somebody that knows exactly
on radiation.
what's going on. They have to have some, like he said, a good understanding.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, a good understanding, but what they also talk about is they've got the everyday common people, too, from the town.
Well, yes,
and what they're doing is they spent, the plant spent some money educating, you know, so.
Yep.
Yeah, we're just kind of throwing it out there.
You said senator of the county? You said
Well, yeah.
senator of a county?
Well, it would be whoever the legislator, it'd be Mike, you know.
Legislator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, someone like that. And of course, you know, several people from the select board, and because this is where it would probably be agreed upon and set up, you know.
And then would you think about encompassing also, because I was not in Vermont when the agreement was set with the state. Would you think about maybe trying to do, as Patty said, and getting people in who are actually, because it's a lot of money that's going to be coming down from the state.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, I don't know if that'd be the cap.
it would just seem to me that it would be
At
great to
least
have
more
somebody
representation at
Yes.
those tables.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
You know, they've, you know, the list of agencies and so forth that Energy is giving some money to, that if we had, as a community, representation at those tables.
Absolutely.
Yeah, being the host community for the plant, it would seem to me that we should
I
have
mean,
a seat at those tables.
frankly, it was, reading the news, it was a little disappointing that Vernon was not at all represented, and we read about it or see it on TV. This happened up in Montpelier.
Yeah.
And, well,
Well, extortion always happens up in Montpelier, but that's a different subject.
so, again, I mean, that was in the news in Montpelier, it was 2 million here, and do this and that, and if we as a community had more representation or some representation, that would be to our benefit as a town, too.
Well, I think it's very important for us to have representation on those committees, because that's where the money's going to be spent. And the majority of people, I mean, the biggest number of people that are going to get laid off are in this town. So when we're looking for people who need jobs, it's people in this town. And when you look at economic development, I mean, it's very important to this town. So I certainly think we need to have representation in those organizations. I think we have to do it, because otherwise that money's going to get spent and Vernon's not going to be part of the process. And that would be, I think, really sad for this town.
Well, let me ask the question in a different way as far as, we've already asked the question, what is your idea? And what I've heard you say is you haven't had enough time to really investigate, how you feel about it. So let me ask another question. What can we do as a planning commission or as citizens to, bring, further, information into you guys, to help you with your decision-making process and who
I think
would you
you've
like to
done
hear
enough.
from?
Yeah, I
I think you've done enough. I mean, I think you've brought in a lot of information. And I don't mean it as a sarcastic sound to it. I didn't mean it that way at all. Think about what I said. I have read some of it. I have not read it all. And because I just haven't had time. But I have read it, and I think that it has a lot of good information in it. And what you bring forth as well has a great ideas, great whatever. We maybe put it on next week, and the next meeting or something to talk about. But we've got budgets and stuff like that. But we do have. We don't have a lot of time, but we have some time. And right now is a bad time I feel, for select board, because we're trying to get articles, we're trying to do budgets, we're trying to do everything else, and we just don't have the time to continuously repeat ourselves with this CAP program that is very important. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that's my thoughts on it. I don't know how anybody else thinks about it.
Well, the other thought, too, is
we're
if you
trying
look
to-
at Wiscasset, they didn't lay it on the select board to form the CAP, because they did it. They did it, primarily. So I don't know if the other approach would be to go to someone, at Vermont Yankee and say, hey, what do you think of the thought of a CAP? And would you be willing to head it up?
Well, see,
and-
that's a part of our discussion.
Yeah, at some point, sure.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that Vermont Yankee would want the
Select board.
right.
I think that we shouldn't give up that control to anybody,
Yeah,
especially Entergy.
And I don't think, certainly we're not saying, I don't think we should do it. I think we're all just kind of confused in what direction to go to do it. Now, I don't know if, I think we have a lot of really bright thinking people in this town. Do we want to find out, what Safe Store is, what the future is at Vermont Yankee, what their plans are, form a committee to work with Vermont Yankee to get those answers? Yeah. Do I think that there's going to be a lot of people that want to work with
Gary Sachs?
I'm trying to be really delicate here. I'm doing a very good job.
No, but you know something, I think, and I understand exactly what you're saying. I just think it would be a useful exercise for a lot of people to figure out, we're all in this together, and we need sometimes to learn to get along and cooperate with each other. And in this study right here, there were people who were at loggerheads over this whole thing because they just hated it from the get-go. But once
Have
they
we
came to
started
an
out that way? I didn't think so.
No, no,
No, he's referencing the
Right.
clamshell
And
alliance.
It's the anti-nuclear people, not
I just
us.
think,
Yeah.
Where was I, sleeping?
Well, Chris, I keep referring to this.
I'm
this
sorry,
study right
Dale,
here.
I'm thinking,
And there
where
were,
did that come from?
people who were diametrically opposed to nuclear and everything else. But when they came together and said, look, we're all working towards a safe end, I think it was a very good thing at the end of the day. And so I hear what you're saying about we do have a lot of bright people in this town. But the reality is, like we said, Keene has 65 people losing a job. Brattleboro's got 60-something. We've got a slew of people here. Northfield has got a few. And I think to bring the whole community together, to at least give them the opportunity to have an input and say, look, here we are. How can we safely get information out, accurately get information out, and bring this together, as a very successful close, to this plan.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that the CAP is their largest thing is to disseminate information to the public.
And
What
that's
about using our
important.
website to do that? Or about putting a page on our website which is, Yankee information, Vermont Yankee Energy information, like what is Safe Store, and then a little blip about what Safe Store is, and
I think that's
what
And
about?
that's a thought, because
Yeah.
they did use technology in this study here. They actually had a website for it. But again, people that are going to do this, they know that A, it has to be accessible, and B, that the information on there is accurate. And it's changing, you just can't put a sort of a blank page on there because, let's face it,
Yeah, you don't want
as the years
anybody's
go by,
opinion,
Yeah.
you want
Right, it
facts.
needs to be facts, they need to be, but like if you're gonna talk about the tax stabilization contract and what that is, or what that means to Vernon, something like that information, some of that information could be out there so people understand what that is or what it means, and they have a reference point to go to, or even if there's contact information for if people have more questions or want to be, I don't know, have more to share.
Some lessons
whatever.
learned. They talk about lessons learned. One of the learning curves is originally the CAP, they were talking about, how you going to get rid of the fuel, the spent fuel, how you going to do that. Technologically, they weren't there. They didn't know how to do that, so they gave that up. They pushed that away, and they just basically were there to help the plant with the decommissioning process and to get information out to the townspeople in the surrounding areas. And they used the newspaper primarily. It's a bigger city, bigger town, so they had television there.
We do too.
Yeah,
You're on it right now.
I want you to know, my grandson asked me a couple weeks ago if I was a movie star, because I'm on TV all the
There
time.
you
So
go.
we do have TV.
Yes,
Your
we
answer
do.
was,
Down to the school.
You're in action movies.
did you tell us the answer?
I told him I was a legend in my own mind. I guess, how much do you think the negotiations between Entergy and the state that have already happened and the agreements that have already been made change what's happening in Vermont compared to what happened in Maine?
I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know. Like I say, part of it is talking about change, and but a majority of what they talk about in this report is disseminating information. And actually, people of diversity and diverse backgrounds and different ways of thinking, the clamshell people and the pro people, coming together and working together. And for the plant, it wound up being a very positive thing. I don't know how that works with VY Energy. I don't know.
Because didn't they when they dealt with the plant and talked with the plant, didn't they kind of go down the road of suggesting how things should be done and how decommissioning could be done and all of that? Wasn't that all part of the CAP?
Partially, yeah. I mean,
Let me comment on that, because one of the more interesting articles in this thing right here said, look, there's another 100 plants in this country that are going to have to go through this decommissioning process. And every plant that goes through decommissioning and has a CAP, a community advisory panel, learns something from that, to carry to the next decommissioning process. So I think that in itself speaks to a reason to say, okay, because
You know, you guys can sit down. I just really
Really,
like
I
to go
just,
standing
you
up.
No,
don't have
it's-
to stand
sorry.
up.
We're just about done, but
My back.
we talked about, VY and their public, or Entergy, let me saying, look, they also don't want to give the appearance of being a bad guy, and that's what they're sort of bringing to the table, but it would think to them that if they could invite the people in and again, sort of foster goodwill and foster an image that they really care about the surrounding towns, I think that would be a benefit.
I
to
don't
them.
think Entergy would, I don't think they'd have a problem with this at all. I'm trying to figure out in my own mind, and I'm sure everybody else is, what direction we would go to. Because I always thought of community action plan, and we talked about it in the very beginning. You're talking about economic development, you're talking about getting jobs from people who are being displaced, keeping the tax rate low, all of the things we need to do to keep this town viable during this process is what I've always thought of as a community action plan. I think it's really an asset for people in this town to be able to get the kind of information that you're talking about. Because unless you're submersed in it like all of us are, how do you get that information?
True.
And I think Entergy could be very helpful.
I
'cause
think
if you go to the Entergy website, there's a page on the Entergy website about what is safe store, what is decommissioning, what is a green field, what is a brown field.
But to be fair about it, that's pretty a generic boilerplate type of deal. When you've got the personal touch, from the citizen
Oh,
in this
no,
area
I'm just saying
right here,
use that as
and-
part of a boilerplate. I'm
Yeah.
not saying just tell everybody to go to the Entergy website. That's not what I meant at all. I just meant that that's the kind of thing that could be really helpful to people, because how many people in town are going to think to go to the Entergy website? That's not an answer. It's
Right.
just an
And I
observation.
think Entergy would be more than pleased, to have their public image bolstered by that type of community action, where people are in there. And I think that's something that they're very strongly aware of, because guess what? They're going to go through this in another town, another state, somewhere else. And so maybe the thing to do would be to run it up the flagpole with them and see, talk with somebody at Entergy and their PR person and see where it goes there.
Yeah, I don't see Entergy having a problem with this at all. I really don't. I'm just, as you're talking, just my mind's going, and I'm trying to figure out what direction we would go into and how we would work this out, because it's totally different than the train of thought I had.
Okay.
And I'm only speaking for me. I don't know what everybody else was thinking about a cap. I was looking at getting from here till 2 years
Well,
from
what you're
now.
talking about is certainly a viable thing, but I think it's separate, because the cap here, when we're talking, it's the decommissioning advisory panel.
Okay, and I think I was confused too,
Right.
because
The
I was
cover-
thinking the
the
same
cover
thing,
says
that, there are
decommissioning,
these
and that
pools
is
of money someplace.
specifically for that.
I thought, maybe
What
you
you're
were
talking
thinking
about
about
is
how do we
even
get
something different.
Vernon to
It
get some of
probably
it.
is a cap. We can call it a cap. or
Certainly needs to
something,
be
but I
part
think
of the process.
with the money end of it and stuff like that, sure.
All right. Well, let us,
Figure out when we have time and get it on the agenda and get going with it.
you know what, if we don't finish too late tonight, I'm not making any promises, but we did end up getting somebody off of our agenda. I didn't mean it to sound that way, poor Todd. If we don't finish too late tonight, we can discuss it under new business. If it gets to be too late tonight, then we will put it on
Either
the
that,
agenda
or
for first.
I think we're going to have WRC probably at a meeting after our hearing. And I think what Chris Campney's going to do is bring some information from a couple of plants that he's visited. And
Your public meeting's next week, right?
no, yes, it is,
Yes,
16th, you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
hearing's next
16th.
week.
Yeah, the hearing's next
So
week.
I don't know if we're going to have a meeting
Our
the first, third.
review for the town plan, it's a draft, it's in its draft form right now. We have a
Wednesday, I think, right?
planning commission meeting this Thursday, and then the following Thursday is our first.
Oh, that's right, today's only the 6th.
Well, that's the 13th.
Steve, what do you think of all of this as a person more in the trenches than any of us?
Well, the thing that I think is very important is whatever you put together, you need to be sure that there are guidelines to follow.
Yes.
And that people stay on target.
That's what
Absolutely.
scares
From
me.
my experience, especially if you get some of the luminaries that you're talking about on this committee or in this group of people, there's going to be a real tendency to go off into flights of fancy
Yes.
on issues that are very technically oriented. One of the things that you're talking, if what I just heard, and I thought that the CAP centered around a community advisory panel. Now you're saying it's not that, it's a decommissioning panel?
Well, if you,
That's what he just said.
Yeah.
This is what the, actually, Steve.
But Wiscasset, I'm going to just tell you something. You might be having the Wiscasset, it's a very different situation than what we have here. You know that Wiscasset, you know what's left at Wiscasset right now?
Well, tell us.
No, you tell me. You've investigated Wiscasset. What's on the Wiscasset site right now?
I have no idea.
they've got, well,
You know.
well, they've got dry cast storage here.
Anything else?
It's a fenced-in area, and they got security.
That's all
it.
they got, yeah.
Right.
Very different from what's going to happen over here. Because we can't do that over here. I've told you guys this before. It's not possible for probably 10 years at least. The other thing I want to be very clear about is there have been some very specific commitments made by the state of Vermont and Entergy with regards to all of these negotiations in Montpelier. And to put this CAP or this decommissioning thing or whatever you want to call it together, you better be very clear as to what agreements have already been made in Montpelier that you are not going to have any control over changing.
Oh, absolutely not.
Well,
That's why,
See,
that's
and
why,
That's my
we
concern.
need to
Yeah.
do, if this is coming, I mean, I don't know, is this coming out of the planning commission, or is
Well,
this something you guys just put together?
no, we,
Yeah, where did it come
Because
from?
we certainly haven't been talking about this in the level of detail on the planning commission for the meetings I've attended,
yeah, no, we
which
haven't,
have been all of them.
we haven't done that. But where it basically came from is we brought it up primarily to them. We brought this in, they
Right,
agreed
right,
and studied
yeah.
it.
It's-
And
I'm sitting here, it's like a pig and a poke to me. Do you know what that means?
explain it, Steve.
A pig and a poke. Now, come on, in farming communities, when they used to sell pigs at market, you ended up with a pig inside of a big basket. And you could hear the grunting noises and so forth, but you weren't really sure what was in the basket until you got it home and opened it up.
Absolutely.
Well, we need to be very careful
Stories.
as to what this thing looks like, because it may not be at all what we're looking for when we get down to the wire.
Well, and that's why it's important that,
That we
like
define-
Wiscasset,
Yeah.
Wiscasset is the one that formed this commission, not the town people.
Right,
Not
but
the
what I'm
community.
saying is that with the Wiscasset model is not a very good one for us to follow.
Well, they're where they're at now. I
Number
mean, they
one-
shut down in '97.
Right, but number one,
So-
the state of Maine didn't get into negotiations
No.
with the parent company before the plant had even pulled the plug. Right? Did you know that? You knew
I know
that,
they shut
right?
down very quickly, yeah.
Well, they shut down quickly, but the state of Maine wasn't in discussion. The governor of Maine didn't, call the powers that be at Central Maine Power in to discuss what they were going to do. That didn't happen there. Here, it's like our governor and his minions essentially yanked the rug out from under the folks that might have been participating at this
Right.
level.
And that's really what I said to begin with. The
Yes,
thing
it
we
is.
have
It's
to
a
be very
different
careful of is,
situation. So you need to, when you go, I think, when you plan this thing, you need to go into it with some defined understandings, and you also need to know what has been committed to already.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have a whole lot left.
But I tried to open this conversation by saying we're not looking at any kind of fiduciary control whatsoever on this thing. We understand that this fiduciary issues are everywhere, with
I'm
with
not
all these
speaking of
agreements.
I'm
fiduciary.
not talking about money.
fiduciary at all.
What I'm talking about, Dale, is things like, you mentioned decommissioning. It seemed to me, just from what I read in the newspapers, and I haven't received anything at my level where I work, but it seems to me that there was a pretty tight negotiated agreement on to how
And
that
a
was gonna
schedule, a
actually
very
be
clear
followed.
schedule as to what was going to be
And the
followed.
schedule
Right.
is even announced, so I don't know how much input anybody's going to have in that area.
maybe the best way to start this would be to see, now Mike's going back to Montpelier tomorrow. Maybe after he's been there because I'm sure that this is going to be a topic of discussion in Montpelier.
think.
Maybe the best way to start this is to have him come in and let us know what deal the state
What the deal
and
was.
Entergy have agreed on.
I like that
Because-
idea.
Because when you start
I like that
talking
idea.
about the decommissioning and the safe store and the dry cast storage, that's all been determined already. So should we have a cap of people who learn what the process is, understand what it is, and disseminate that information to the townspeople? I think that would be awesome, because
Yeah.
people are really confused. So I think that that would be a huge asset to this community. But if we're going to disseminate, or if we're going to put together a committee that's going to talk about how we're going to decommission, when we're going to decommission, what the future is, what the dry cast storage is, that is out of our hands. That's the state, the Public Service Department has already determined that.
At least it certainly sounds that way.
It certainly sounds that
Yes.
way.
And
We
see,
don't
at least
know
it
that
certainly
yet.
sounds that way. There you go. 85% of what this thing is talking about is disseminating information, and that's what the cap does.
Yeah.
It's just to get the right information, know
Well,
how to
so-
speak about it, and to get it out to the
Well,
public.
that wouldn't be
So that we're
cap,
not
that
sitting
would
here
be-
going, well, I think that's what it sounds like.
I think
We're not
maybe-
sure.
I think maybe we need to invite somebody from the Public Service Department down here.
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
That'd be great, too.
So let's see what we can do about having somebody down here, and then we get the information from the source. I don't think that's fair to do to, personally, I don't think that's fair to do to Entergy. I think it should come from the state source, and then we find out exactly what decisions have already been made without us being a part of, and then we can go on from there. But I certainly think that a group of people formed to find out this information, disseminate the information, and get it on to our townspeople is an awesome idea. We will discuss this, if we can, at the end of the meeting, as I said, and if not, then certainly first thing next meeting. But in that process, I'll make some phone calls and see if we can get some folks down here to actually explain things to us. But I do think that we need to make sure that part of this process has to be looking at the economic development, where those monies are going, how that money's being spent.
Absolutely.
I think that's, because we are different
Oh, yeah.
than Maine,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know that their
Absolutely.
chore and what they did was different. But, our goal, and the reason why we've worked as hard as we have up to this point, is to know exactly what we're dealing with the budget and with the future. And part of knowing that is going to be knowing what's going on at Sevitz, knowing what's going on Wyndham Regional, knowing what's going on with the Department of Labor and getting jobs, and continue conversation with Entergy about how human resources is developing and putting together their program to get people employed. Because to me still, and maybe because I've been in the trenches too long, and I've heard this conversation for, not the cap conversation, but the safe store and the dry cast storage, and I've been immersed in that for so many years. That's really not where my concerns and questions are. I'm sure there are townspeople who will have those concerns and questions, but right now, what I'm looking at is what's going to happen to the people in this town. So I think that has to be a very real part of this cap.
Absolutely.
And it's a lot of money. We're talking about a lot of money that got disseminated, that, we either can try and figure out how to get to or not. And, it's millions of dollars over the next 5 years, so I do think that has to be a part of the discussion.
And it's all happening because of this
somehow.
community, so we certainly should have a seat
Yeah.
at that table.
Absolutely.
I think we should have a
I think
copy
the
of Paul
other,
Miller's speech.
the other thing that we need to do, if in fact this effort is coming out of the planning commission, I don't know whether it is or not, but if it is, then we really need to sit down and have a good conversation about that within the planning commission to determine if really that's the way we want to go.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
because it has to be the
if not,
whole,
well, I mean, if not, then you guys can just go off on your own and do what you're doing, but if this is a planning commission effort, then we need to.
Well, I guess it's a fair statement, Steve, to bring it, because the planning commission is the only one that's aware of, in the draft, of the resiliency. And
I'm familiar with the
they
resiliency
talk about
plan, right.
the CAP.
I
So,
am, yes.
so that's really
I
the
am.
genesis of where it came from.
Right, exactly.
So, that.
But in other words, you haven't really discussed it as a planning,
no, but if it is a
not-
planning,
not-
it's a planning board thing, it has to be an
That's what I was
agreement of
just
that,
asking.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're discussing it here now.
okay.
So, and I'll just say this, I for one would be more than willing to, to offer to serve on the CAP, so should you desire to use me in whatever way, but I won't speak for any of the other planning commission members at this point in time, but.
Well, I think some of us have been actually barred from serving on the CAP, given our affiliation.
I thought we didn't talk about the
with a
CAP.
certain
I thought we didn't
entity.
talk about the CAP, Steve.
You know what you said.
You know
Yeah,
what,
but we were
Steve?
talking about fiduciary.
And I don't mind.
Steve, you know
That
what?
work at the plant.
May I speak as a board member? Only one. There's four other votes here. But as a board member, I don't think that there's anybody in this community that has more knowledge and in a better position to serve on a CAP
Absolutely.
than you.
I agree with
Because I don't care where you work. Where you work is going out of work.
We'll discuss it.
But where you work is closing. And your knowledge,
True.
your knowledge.
I'm actually going to retire soon, so.
Well, then you have more time to help us. But your knowledge and your experience is unbelievably useful to this town.
Yes.
So I hope you'll think very seriously of helping us out. I hope you'll think seriously of helping us. Carol, you had something?
Just a question, with the dealings between Vermont Yankee and the state,
Mhm.
how come Vernon wasn't invited? If they really are concerned about the town,
If who's concerned, the state?
no, Vermont Yankee.
Vermont Yankee has no choice in any of this.
But why
They were
couldn't-
summoned.
I mean, they're the principal player. Why couldn't they have said, this is the host town, why can't they be?
Because the agreements that were being made for a CPG for the plant to be able to run for another year. That's why Vermont Yankee Entergy went to the state. They needed the CPG, Certificate of Public Good, I'm sorry, shouldn't be speaking in acronyms here. They needed the CPG to stay open until December 31st, 2014. Okay? As you read in the article that was so well written, the end of the article stated that the Public Service Department is going to not tell the Public Service Board to approve it, but recommend strongly that the Public Service Board approve the CPG for a year. So that was the conversation about the CPG. Okay, the decommissioning, the safe store, all of those issues were all part of why the CPG would be given, or considerations that had to be made in order for the CPG, or for the recommendation of the CPG. We still don't have a CPG yet, but the recommendation of the CPG, Entergy had to agree to those things. So it really wasn't, at the time, it really wasn't a discussion that, I can't say it didn't involve the town, because anything that happens in this town, involves the town, but it was more the CPG discussion, and that's where all those agreements came from.
So we let them off the hook.
So I don't think it has anything to do with Entergy. I don't think it was Entergy at all. I think it was the state of Vermont. They're the ones that demanded all this money. They're the ones that have decided where the money's going to go. I think certainly as a town within the state of Vermont, somebody should have called us and said, "What do you need?" We did have a visit. We did have a visit for an afternoon with a lot of promises, but that's really all we've had so far. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
All right, thank you.
Sally, and you're not feeling well, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Do I have my, I don't have my cheat sheet.
Oh, you know what, because
No,
I
I
didn't
don't
get
either.
one.
Sally, can I see the first one?
We need one, we didn't get one this week.
Oh, you did it?
No.
Boy, that snow day really threw everybody out this week, didn't it?
Yeah,
Warrants outside, we don't have our cheat sheets.
I don't know how to read these. Okay, Madam Chair. I make a motion that we approve the following bills and warrants, which will take me a while to get through.
Okay.
Number 51S for $21,087.46.
Oh, wait a minute, whoa.
Try that again.
21,000.
$21,087.46.
Okay.
Number 53S for $16,660.08.
Too many sixes.
Been a long time, Sally, since we've had to do this.
666?
All right, Chris. Number 52S for $79,298.35. And number 13SG, which is going to be a total different place, for $54,160.14.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve and sign warrants 51S for $21,087.46, 53S for $16,660.08, 52S for $79,298.35, and 13SG for $54,160.14. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You're good. I hate to ask this of you, but I'm going to ask for a short executive session on a personnel matter.
Sure.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to go into executive session with our treasurer on a personal matter, the disclosure of this time, which might be detrimental to the town and or individuals involved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session on a personnel matter with the town treasurer, Sally, on a...
Personnel.
On a
I
personal
said we
matter.
said that.
Yeah, okay.
The disclosure of which at this time might be detrimental to the town. Okay, let's go right on to the Vermont.
Gotta come in executive.
Oh. Okay, we came out of executive session at, was it 8:20? 8:20. No action taken. Let's go right on to the Vermont Energy, Vermont Yankee Energy Agreement. The board has met really once with all of the people from Vermont Yankee. They had a proposal. We had a counteroffer. We met with the listers, and I think all of the members of the board. Janet was missing because you were gone for the funeral, right?
No, she was
Oh, the
here.
first one you were here for.
First one, oh
The
yeah,
first one
I
you
was
were here
definitely
for.
here. Us and the listers, yeah.
We had a counter proposal. Entergy, the folks that were here went back to corporation and talked to the vice president of whatever, the Northeast, whatever that was, and a few other folks, and Entergy agreed to accept our proposal. So this is an amendment to the original tax stabilization agreement we had, and this is what we have signed for the last 2 years? 3 years?
I think it's
3 years. Time goes by so fast. So it's basically the same amendment we've signed for the past 3 years. It brings the
Assessment.
the value of Vermont Yankee from $300 million to $280 million, which is the same as, I know, awesome, which is the same as what the plant was assessed at 3 years ago. On behalf of the board, we would like to publicly thank Entergy and the folks that we dealt with. It was a purely professional meeting that we had. They were wonderful to deal with, as Entergy has always been with the town of Vernon. And we really, really, really appreciate their dealing with us in the way they did. It certainly buys us. It will be about, Carol, about $80,000 less than our tax base than what we made last year. So instead of so instead of about 1.3, it'll be about it's somewhere around $80,000 anyway.
Yes,
So about 1.220.
80 million, right?
No, 80,000.
Right.
If it was 80 million, we wouldn't. We'd be going like.
I was thinking 280 million, and I wasn't thinking of the
But
80,000.
it was a great deal for the town, and we really, really appreciate it. It certainly puts us in a better position now than we were a week ago. So, that being said, I will entertain a motion to, does anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Please.
No, I'm going to. Does that irritate you?
No,
Oh.
not at all.
Why, were you gonna smack me if I said yes?
Never.
You get elected the same way we did, take it out.
We had mentioned, it says, whereas the town of Vernon and Vermont Yankee, whereas Vermont Yankee, and then it goes down to whereas the town and Vermont Yankee, and then now therefore the town and Entergy. And also in here, it also says that it talks about that certificate of publicity. And that needs to be out of there because that's now.
No, the number 3 amendment, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back to that and explain it for people who are listening. Because in 2008, the Select Board signed an agreement with Vermont Yankee, and it was a higher value because they had gone into the wasn't dry cast store, power uprate. So the income for Vermont Yankee was going to be higher. So they renegotiated a higher grand value for Vermont Yankee because of that income generation. In that original contract, there was a clause saying that, and this isn't word for word verbatim, but basically if the legislature passed laws that changed the income responsibility or the revenue responsibility for Entergy, that our contract would be null and void. So when we signed, when the contract was up in 2012, and we signed a new contract for the $300 million, we asked that that clause come out because it really put the town of Vernon on the hook for anything that happened in the legislature, and that really wasn't fair to the town of Vernon because we had always been so supportive of Vermont Yankee, and we can't live our future worrying about what happens in Montpelier. So they had removed that clause. So when we started this negotiation, that was one of the things that they had said that they would want that back in the contract, and we said that we couldn't sign a contract with that in there because we really couldn't put the town at risk for the who knows what's going on in Montpelier attitude. So they agreed to take that clause out, and it does read, neither this Third Amendment nor the tax agreement shall be terminated prior to March 31st, 2015 due to a change of law as described in Section 3.03 of the tax agreement. And that Section 3.03 of the tax agreement was the original 2008 agreement that had the clause about the legislature. So they did take that out. It puts us not at risk for anything that happens in Montpelier. And when we were negotiating all of this, they were also still negotiating with the state. So we really didn't know what that outcome was going to be. Now we do, and now we know it's not, well, it still could be an issue because who knows what the legislature is going to do. But
it's far less of one than it was
it's not an
before.
issue at all. No matter what happens in the legislature, the town's not at risk.
Thank you for that, but that's not what I was asking.
You're asking about the Vermont Yankee and Entergy.
That, but also it says, whereas the parties acknowledge that a request for a certificate, or CPG, acronym, to continue operation of the generation facility through the end of the current operating cycle remains under review by the Vermont Public Service, and it doesn't remain under review anymore, right? Have they been not granted that?
No, it is still under review by the Public Service Board. That is the quasi-judicial board that's having the hearings right now. The Public Service Department and the administration is who negotiated with Entergy. They've made their deal now. The Public Service Department, and it gets so confusing because there's a Public Service Department and a Public Service Board.
So which is the commission? Is the commission the same as the board?
The commission is the same as the board.
Okay.
So the Public Service Department is going to recommend to the Public Service Commission that they approve the CPG. Still, it's still a quasi-judicial board, and they still are not under the power of the legislature or the department or the administration. So they really still can have their own ruling, just like any judge in any court in the state of Vermont can have their own ruling, no matter what the state says. But chances are that that's been done that way. Anybody else? Questions?
That was 1.22 million?
About that, I don't know exact amount of money, but it's a very minimal amount that we're going to lose over last year. It's an excellent deal, and it was negotiated by the entire select board and the listers. And it's been checked over by the attorney. Okay?
Madam Chair, I
Mhm.
move that we sign the third amendment to the tax stabilization contract dated as of April 1st, I believe, 2014.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to sign the third amendment of the tax stabilization contract with Entergy dated April 1st, 2014. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 But that's for a one-year
It's
agreement.
a one-year
Yes,
agreement.
a one-year
So it
agreement.
should be in the motion, in the motion.
Yes.
This
Friendly
is a
amendment
one-year
taken
agreement, right.
That's
Okay.
good through April 2015?
March 31st.
March 31st, 2015.
Then I'm an aye as well, then.
Aye.
Now, we have to sign two of them, one for us and one we have to send to Entergy, and it will be, no, I'm sorry, we have to send both of them to Entergy. Patricia Galbraith will sign them both and send one back to us.
Oh, that'd be good.
Can you send that one?
Don't hit me. I'll write this one in black.
The swing is coming.
He hasn't signed it yet. We can bring it back to him.
We haven't either. We go ahead and
Oh, I think.
Sorry, it was used to be because the printer.
Oh, right, didn't pick
Yeah,
it up.
who wouldn't pick up blue? And see, now it's all changed, so.
Katrina, I sent a copy over to you.
Jeff
So we
needs
need
to-
sign. So we would have it.
Yep, I have it.
One of these copies will be signed by them and sent back to us, and that will be the public record.
Okay.
But just so we have that. Everybody signed both of them?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Do you have an address to mail it to? You want me to just mail it out?
I'll do it.
Okay. Can you just take a copy of the one that's signed by you guys
Okay.
before we do that? So the copy that I have will have your signatures on it.
Okay. I'll send it UPS tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yep. I'd like to discuss the use of the lawyer. Our town attorney is the select board's attorney.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a motion that use of the town attorney shall only be by prior approval of the select board. Violation of this will result in the person, department, or committee being charged said legal fees.
Second?
Can I read that? It's been moved and seconded that the use of the town attorney shall only be by prior approval of the select board. Violation of this will result in the person, department, or committees being charged said legal fees. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You might want to give that to Katrina so she can read it. It's up to you.
I do.
All right.
Dear Katrina, I want this statement put in the minutes, please. Now, this is me. I'm going to poll the board after. Chris Howe, as vice chairman of the select board, Vernon Selectboard, find after much research, and I have done a lot of research with the statutes and our handbook, that there is no conflict of interest with any board member, and further find that the board member's business relationship with Vermont Yankee / Entergy is totally unrelated to any issue involved in a tax stabilization agreement, and that no board member has potential of financial benefit or deterrent, from such an agreement that is different than any other Vernon resident. This is particularly clear since any such business relationship will cease when the plant closes, regardless of the outcome of the negotiations on taxation. The possibility of improper influence does not exist. Therefore, I further find that there would be no further financial gain, either directly or indirectly, by any board member during or after negotiations with VY/Entergy. Lastly, I have relied on the opinion of town council in this matter and will in the future, I hope as a board, we will, as we proceed with any further future negotiations. Now, I want to poll the board to see if they feel the same as I. Janet?
I do.
Sandy?
I do.
I agree with
Jeff?
Chris.
Thank you. And that's hopefully the end of it.
Michael?
Oh, Patty, could you
Oh,
just...
wait a second.
About the meeting date change?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we got to do the grid thing.
We are going, let's talk about the grid, because we do have time for that, if nobody minds, because it is getting late. But we are going to change our public meeting from the 20th to the 27th, because we still have, because of the snowstorms, and not having a meeting, the budget meeting 2 weeks ago, and Todd not being able to be here today, we still have 3 more big budgets that we have to get in. And we want to make sure that we're getting all the information we can to people when we have our public meeting. So we're going to change it to the 27th. We're also going to see if the school board can make it that night, too. I'm not making any promises, but I think it would probably be nice for people if we could have one meeting for everybody to come out to. So it will be on the 27th at 6:30.
And we will send a flyer around.
Is that okay with everyone?
Here.
Here.
Here?
Could I ask Trend Business to maybe get a new 2014?
I just don't remember it.
I was going to send
You
her
know how
an
many
email, but
months-
then she doesn't look at that as much, and I thought maybe
That's
a
right.
text message was in order.
We used to get Richards.
Yeah, we don't have any, we didn't get any calendars down here, but I will bring one in next week. Tomorrow.
Are we going to meet on the 20th as well?
Yeah, is you going to hold your regular select board meeting on
Yeah,
the
we will
20th?
still have our regular select board meeting
So we
on the
won't be calling
20th.
any department heads during that time?
I'm hoping we're done the
Hopefully
budget
we're
tomorrow
done.
night. And then
Because
that
is
gives
a
us
holiday,
time.
So I just wanted to check, because that was a question that was raised today. Was any department heads going to be, would it be necessary for any of them to be there, because that is a
That's right,
town
you guys are
holiday.
all off that day, huh?
Yeah.
Well, if it's on the 27th, then
No, but our regular select board meeting is on the 20th.
Do you want to do the
wanna
select
do
board
it?
meeting Tuesday?
I was going to say, you want to do the select board meeting Tuesday, because we'll try to keep everything on that meeting, just tying up the budget. And then
We
that way-
also, don't forget, we have to start working on those articles.
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, I
So what-
consider that as tying up the budget, the whole town meeting deal.
Okay, so we should put that on the thing, because they have to be, we have to read them, then we have to say yes or no, we're gonna put them in, or we're gonna change the amounts, or we're gonna do this or that.
Trina,
Then
could you
have to
send
go
an
through
email
the-
out to see
then
if
through
anybody
the attorney.
has articles that they want to have in the town report?
I know that David does.
I know David always does.
Yeah.
Police department might,
For what?
I don't know.
Oh.
I'll send
Just,
an email.
yeah, just send an email out and see if there's anybody
Fire
that wants
department.
articles.
And then we go through these, and maybe we could have a written up thing, you know, just a draft thing right now. And,
I know Susan's going to want one about the acoustic
Yeah,
scholarship.
because you're going to need to, you're going to amend those
Right.
guidelines.
So that has to be on the next agenda.
Yep, that's how I have that listed.
And, because they have to go,
Attorney.
that's what I just
Yeah.
said, vetted through the attorney first.
What's your cutoff date?
20th.
And when can they petition articles till?
Oh, the 20th is the.
23rd.
Articles are 23rd or people 23rd?
People's the 27th. You mean
Okay.
for elected?
Yeah.
I think
You mean,
it's
that's
27th, but-
January, but what is your cutoff for the
Town report.
for the town report.
town report? Is
She doesn't want to say publicly, because if she says a later date, everybody will drag their feet till that date.
I have almost nothing. I mean, I've got such a few things for the report already.
It's such a tough year, I think people are
And no, it's
just,
every year. It gets worse every year.
oh.
I mean, as far as people getting stuff in. So, well.
You have the
to
select
mail
board's
it out
letter.
10 days before town meeting. And we need pretty close to 2 weeks before that. So,
So if we say 1st of February,
that's drop dead. Yeah.
okay. Because that way we can do them next time, send them out to the attorney, and get them back and approve them, and then send them to you, right? That's plenty of time, right?
It's coming fast.
Yep. Yeah,
It's
we've got no
amazing,
time
that.
to play. We've got to do
Well,
it.
we're just going to meet,
Every day.
as much as we need to till we tie this up, because we have to.
So do you want to meet on Martin Luther King Day or the day after?
Well, you know
Day
what?
after.
Wait, well, we could meet and do our budget meeting Monday night and do our select board meeting Tuesday night. And then that way, because we're not going to be
The
doing,
budget will be done.
Yeah.
Should be done.
yeah, it should be done, that's right, it should be.
So Tuesday's fine.
It should be done because we're going to be
And then-
having our public meeting.
And then Katrina's been, given her assignment to get our
Articles.
Yeah, I mean, I would just go through, some of these are going to probably be out, but I would just retype them, and so that we can, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's my phone.
So we can go through them, this is last
My
year's,
phone. I'm on a
go
calendar.
through them and say, no, that's out, that out, that out, that out.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if I have it early enough, I can go up to Sally's office and
Well, if
we
I've got
can-
them
if we
retyped
need
and
to,
you take them
to
out, I can
get
just
the
take them
amounts
out
and
and
stuff, right?
just cut and delete.
Yeah. So if
We'll
you've
have
got
it all ready for the next day, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And if you want to use my dragon, you can.
Like that guy.
I thought about that.
I'm not giving it away, nor am I throwing it away.
Okay, so the
You could use it.
21st, we're going to. I just think, okay, today's the 6th, we're meeting again tomorrow night,
Yeah.
but we still have to plug in numbers. So we're going to have to meet next week.
Yeah, I don't have
Okay.
a problem with that.
Monday and Tuesday next week?
Yeah, I don't care.
How does
Okay,
everybody
wait a
feel?
minute, what did we look at?
And then-
I don't know
and
how
then-
Martin Luther will feel, but
No, next
that's
week's only the
following.
13th and
It's the
14th.
13th and
okay.
14th.
And hopefully we'll have everything done, ready to go to print, ready to go to the public, and the articles. But then that still gives us the 21st if we have more things to tie together.
okay.
Does that sound okay to everybody?
You might have a
Just to be-
snowstorm or something.
Right,
Maybe.
right, and that's my concern. I mean, you know, we already missed a budget meeting because of the weather.
Could have another bad
Not
weather.
intentional.
You don't do it at all.
So those will both be budget meetings, work sessions?
Does that sound okay to everybody?
The
I mean, I
13th
know
and the
it's-
14th? I won't be able to be
Yeah.
there for both of those, but.
Okay.
So will you have the forum's going to be on the 27th?
Forum,
27th.
public forum will be the 27th.
Oh,
Public
no,
meeting.
yeah.
We'll have all our numbers in.
Next week, Monday and Tuesday, right?
My only concern is we're really looking for public input on the 20th. So,
27th.
but I know, I mean,
On the
on the
27th.
20th when we met, I mean, it was to kind of get public input also. So it's tough to tie up a budget, and then what if we get public input that,
We change it.
Then
We just change it that night.
But we'll have it all, Sally, after we say this, okay, we're gonna
You
go
have
with
salaries
this
in
as a
by then?
proposed, then Sally puts it on a thing, and then all we have to
What
do,
do you
if the
need for
public
information?
says, oh, no, change this or that, she just goes in and goes ding, ding.
Because also
Right,
we have
Sally?
to see, if 5 people.
I'm just
show
trying
up at
not
the
to make it
meeting,
more
we're not
difficult for
necessarily
you.
gonna change
I'm
anything
waiting,
because
I
3
usually
people
have
think
the
we should.
selectmen's
Right,
budget
exactly.
done, but then when I keep
Exactly.
making changes, it creeps me out, so I've kind of waited, and I'll just do it when it's time.
Mm-hmm. it is it's just so difficult this year to know.
Because we also don't know, if the changes
I'm
are.
hoping to get it done before the end of December.
I know. Well, we'll still have it
Get a
before
lot
the end of
done.
December. If we have it done by the 27th, we'll still have the budget done by the end of December.
December.
Oh, it's
January.
January.
I was
I think
thinking,
that
wow.
maybe we should.
The way you hear you talk.
Yeah.
We will have it done
We'll
before
definitely have it done by December.
That would be 2014,
I'm thinking
right?
27th, not the month. Oh, my God. Okay.
All right, so we're going to, just
I'm
so
a
we're
little
clear, we're going to
overstressed.
have a meeting on the 13th and the 14th is, tomorrow night, we're having a meeting, actually, which is a
Right.
budget work session at 6 PM. That's already been warned. We have a meeting on January 13th and 14th, another budget work session, again, starting at 6 PM. And then the regular select board meeting will be held on the 20th at 6:30. And then we'll have a public forum on the 27th at 6:30 or 6 PM?
Yeah, did we say the 20th and
6:30.
21st, or just the 20th?
Just the 20th.
Well, you know what, we can always warn it next week. If we feel we need another night,
Right.
we can
Yeah.
always warn a Tuesday night next week. We're still warning it a week ahead of time.
Do we want to do the public forum at 6 or 6:30?
I wrote down 6:30.
I think
don't know.
6:30 is better for
Okay.
people.
Gives some time to.
Here.
So we are going to hold the regular meeting, though, on the 20th, which is Martin Luther King.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, I thought we were going to the
I
21st.
thought we were going to the 21st.
Or are we going to go to the 21st? Well, I
Yeah,
kind of
we're
don't
going
want
to
to
the
attend
21st. Martin
21st.
Luther.
20th if you need.
If we need to do a budget, we're going to do that on the 20th.
Okay.
We're going to have our
21st
regular
can be
select
done.
board meeting on the 21st.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's
Got it.
January.
Yeah, got January.
2014.
You were the only one confused.
I'm in the right month.
Oh, I really have a hard time with that at work because some invoices are 13 and some are 14, so I'm going, isn't it crazy? You're going back and forth. It's like, no wonder why it takes till June to figure out what year it is.
Okay, the sort site,
Okay, we're
site
going to do
he
the
could write.
grid?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the grid.
I have a, I'm really concerned about the hiring stuff. Only because, I'd hate to take that freeze off the hiring and then, because we're trying to cut, you know what I mean? But I also get, I agree with Bobby that we need to, what if we needed somebody? Then what do we do ourselves? Do we say, we suspend what we said last week?
There's no
so we can
problem
do
with
this
that. That's done all the time. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. If something came up where we needed to hire somebody, that's the decision that we make at the time. My point in a hiring freeze, and I think we all have our own reason for doing it, but my point is we are going to be laying people off. So if there are going to be openings that are coming up, we need to look at the people that we have here first before we
I agree with that.
pull somebody
I
else
agree
in.
with that.
That's my whole thing about it. You know,
Yeah.
people who have been loyal to the town should have first bid on anything that's coming along.
I absolutely agree.
As far as the grid, you know, I think that when we made the decision on the grid, we didn't know what next year is going to look like. And I'm still amazed that we were able to negotiate the contract we did. I mean, you're smiling. I know you're just thinking, boy, my life was just made easier. You know, it certainly gives us a year to figure life out,
Yes.
which is awesome. And so I don't think we need the grid to be froze anymore. I do think that we shouldn't do a cost of living increase this year.
Oh, no, I don't know. But that grid, people are coming up to their 5-year and stuff
Right,
like
so
that,
we're
so
gonna move those up.
they should
Okay.
be moved up and everything. So, yeah, all right, then I'll make a motion
Yeah, because
to,
Bobby's point is well taken.
Yes.
You know, the grid is the grid, and
Yeah.
this way we don't tinker with it.
It's
I
funny
would
how
agree
we
with that.
change our mind on things depending on what seat we're sitting in, whether it's this seat or that seat.
well, it was an important thing that we did. I would have never made the motion if
I know, but who did we argue with about if the grid's the grid, we need to stay to the grid?
Absolutely,
For
I
a long
agree.
time, who did we argue with that with,
Right,
about?
I agree.
But, yeah, I mean, you need something not necessarily set in stone, but something to follow, some framework.
Right,
Otherwise, decisions become arbitrary and,
Right.
but,
absolutely.
you know, different board or different day, or, geez, I feel differently today than I did yesterday, and that, so, I mean, to have some framework to follow is important.
Or I like this
Well-
person and I don't like that person, and
Yeah,
that's happened in the past too.
Yeah.
No way it should be. Like,
On the hiring, I don't mind removing that freeze either, if we just say that you can't hire anybody. Leave that.
There's a certain principle to
I would-
follow, or some
I-
guideline to follow. Yeah, if it's emergency,
Then
but,
we'll
I
talk
mean,
about it,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah, then we'll talk
you,
about it. Okay, I agree
You
with
don't
that.
really have a
'cause I-
policy in place that says that in the event that you lay people off that, and positions open up, that you pull from the people you've laid off either. You don't really have any policy
Right.
in
Yeah, we don't
place
have anything
that
to protect our
Right.
employees.
But you want to be
You're right.
careful with that, because if somebody's been laid off that, really hasn't worked out well, I mean, I'm not saying anything about anybody here. I mean, I don't want that going upstairs tomorrow. I didn't mean it that way to anybody. But, I mean, and certainly not mean that about anybody. But the thing is that you don't know if, well, true.
You make me laugh, I'm sorry.
Me too.
Oh, geez, I can't help it. I just, I say one thing about
I
something
can't even
about
look at Janet.
question a bill. Next thing you know, I'm a mean thing. Now, so yeah, I've lost my train of thought. But you know what I'm saying, you might have an employee that really, you know,
You might want to quit while you're ahead.
yeah.
I think you're better off when you lost your train of thought, to be honest with you.
I'll stop.
Anyway.
Never mind.
Just don't find it
But
again.
listen, I'm sorry about that. Sorry,
Sometimes
Lord, I
being
didn't
senile is good.
insult
Mike?
anyway.
How are you?
Oh, is there a motion?
Oh, yes, I
You
made a motion to
Oh, I'm sorry.
Unfreeze the salary grid?
unfreeze the salary grid.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to unfreeze the salary grid. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You talked so long, I forgot to make the motion.
Do you
Mike?
need a motion on cost of living?
No.
Nothing, you don't, right?
No, because
It would only
that's
be
a
if-
decision that's made year by year by the select board.
Right.
We
Well, I
don't
didn't
do it
know
every
if.
year.
Only if,
Yeah, I could-
yeah.
Some people might be confused about it.
Okay.
No.
There we go. Now, Mike.
Sally, I hope you feel better.
Yeah.
I have to get some rest.
It's rotten to be sick at this time of year because it's so cold and miserable out, and you get the chill, and you gotta go outside. It stinks. Feel
My
better.
husband,
Feel
too,
better.
he sounds really wretched as well.
Yes.
That's why she's glad she's here tonight.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, Sally.
Mike?
Yeah, I guess to that last point, I'm not sure I understand the difference between unfreezing the grid but not doing a cost of living increase. So the grid is more like service times?
Yes. The grid is set up according to job and years of service. And after a certain amount of years of service, you go up a step. It's like a step raise, where cost of living increase is given across the board to everyone. And we do that, not every year, depending on, how the economy's going and the year's going and what the budget looks like.
And so you're definitively saying there will not be a cost.
There will not be a cost of living increase, but there will be a grid increase for those who are due. Not everybody gets a grid increase every year.
And again, to be clear, you did not reverse the decision on the hiring.
No.
And obviously, the main thing I wanted to ask about was the Entergy agreement.
Somehow I figured that.
Yeah. So you said
Okay, to give him mine.
it's down slightly. The overall valuation of the facility was down slightly. But the fact that it was that number previously.
Yeah,
Want
when
this,
the,
Mike?
when the select
I
board,
can't walk to you, so.
Oh, got it.
when the select board and Entergy reached the agreement in 2008, where every other time the plant was assessed, it always started at a higher value and went lower. In 2008, it started at a lower value and went higher. And I can't tell you why that happened because I wasn't on the select board at the time, but it had to do a lot with the power up rate and the fact that, the first year of the power up rate, there was still payback and kind of, that kind of thing. Were you around at the time, Sandy?
Yeah, but I wasn't working for the board at that time.
Yeah, and I was originally on the tax committee, but then it was all in the winter, and I was in Montpelier, so I was never here. So I really didn't take part that much, only in the very first couple meetings when really there was really not a lot of negotiating going on yet. But it started at a lower rate and went up to 300,000 and stayed at 300 million. Stayed at 300 million for 3 years. So the last 3 contracts we signed were at 300 million. So it was 3 years ago, it was at 280.
And you said the actual impact, they're going to be paying about $80,000 less in taxes in fiscal 2015.
Right.
Or no, the agreement's
14 to 15.
April 1st.
April 1st,
Not
but the tax year is July 1st.
Yeah.
It's detrimental.
Yeah.
They're assessed as of April 1st.
They're assessed as April 1st at the 280 million.
So what does that do?
Yeah.
Obviously,
Sorry.
it relieves some pressure, but do you still plan to cut as much as you had thought you were going to cut, or does that mean you don't have to cut hardly anything?
No, I think that would be really irresponsible of us to say, well, we just fell off the pumpkin wagon, so now we don't have to cut the budget. The exercise that we've been involved in looking at the other towns and what the other towns do, how they provide services and what they spend, I think has been an eye-opener for all of us. So we will continue to look at the budget and make cuts. I think that the taxpayers expect us to bring the budget into control, but it does give us a little bit of leeway to look at how we can redevelop and reorganize different departments. We've talked all along about the rec department, and certainly I'm speaking for myself, my feeling that I think keeping a decent rec department makes us a community that families want to move to. And we're going to have a lot of family homes on the market, so we want to be able to draw people like that. And we've talked about increasing revenue and marketing the pool and extending, to out of town. But when we start booking budgets for that, it's a guessing game. We don't know how many people are going to buy a season pass, or how much revenue increasing the swimming lessons is going to bring in. So it gives us a little bit of leeway to play with the budget a little bit, to book some savings, work for even more savings, but no, we're not going to we can't overspend our budget because there's no money to spend if we overspend our budget. So it kind of puts us in it safeguards us a little bit.
Wouldn't you say, Penny, that BY closing just acted as a catalyst for us to begin to look at
absolutely
budgets? It wasn't the reason. It may have been the catalyst, but it's not why we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
Certainly an eye-opener.
And it also, we know that this is a one-year deal. We're going to have to negotiate a longer contract. Now, we're hoping for a 10-year, but we may end up with a 5-year like the state. I mean, the state only negotiated a 5-year contract. We don't know what it's going to be. We're certainly going to push for a longer term because I think it gives more peace of mind to the community to know exactly what's going to happen from year to year for the next 10 years. But we're still going to have to make cuts because next year their value is going to be lower. And the year after that, it's going to be lower than that. So it gives us an adjustment period.
And how, is there any structure set up at all for that longer term?
Not yet. No,
In terms of how the talks would happen, are you talking about?
We won't do anything till after town meeting because we just have so much on our plates right now. And I'm sure they probably do too. There's a lot of organization going on right now with the plant, how it's going to close, how it's going to go into safe store. All those decisions are being made right now by really the same people that we'll be negotiating a long-term contract with. So we're going to wait till after March. We're going to bring Skip Sansucci in, who is the gentleman that we've hired for years to assess the plant. We'd like to talk to other towns that have gone through this process and find out where they made their mistakes because, as they said in the caps, there's a lot to be learned by the mistakes that other communities make, So we'd like to have time to talk with those other communities and see if they had the chance to renegotiate with their plant, what they would do different so we don't make the same mistakes. Obviously, it's not a 5-minute job to assess a nuclear power plant, so it's going to take our person a while to come up with some. And we want to talk to Entergy and see what their game plan is, because they really have been wonderful. This agreement is fantastic. So, we want to see what they want to offer and go from there.
I guess the last thing then leads to that discussion that occurred earlier with the citizen advisory. I'm not sure I understand where that ended up tonight. I mean, are we still talking about it? Are we not still talking about it?
I think so.
I think we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
I think we're definitely going to, look into it. For me personally, and you guys can all speak for yourself, for me personally, I'd love a way to educate the people in our town as to what's going on and how the process is going to work. So I think that's an important thing people need to know.
I think again, the better educated some of our community members are about the decommissioning process and the time frame and so forth, the better educated more people are, the more positive input they would be able to thus provide in directing our community's future. We'll have some better ideas and some consensus as a community where we're going to end up.
And it takes the fear away, I think.
Well, sometimes even if it's maybe not positive news, at least it's some news to work with.
Absolutely.
you know what you're dealing with, and again, that's, to me, the nice thing about this tax stabilization contract is it's short-term, but it does give us some sense of fiscal clarity for the short term or the next year. So we kind of at least know for one tax year what we've got to work with,
And we have a pretty good idea where we're going to start the next one. So we do have some sight into the future.
You talk about providing input in this process, there was a lot of talk about the financial end of things tonight, having some input on some of these boards or CEDs, but that's not, I shouldn't tie that together with the idea of the citizen advisory.
it could be two
Or
separate
I think it's separate, absolutely.
ideas. I mean, being more active and involved with boards, and whether it's, sub-eds or any kind of other regional organizations, I think as a town, there's only so much we can do within our town. And again, if that money is spread out in our region or our state, I mean, you don't want to begrudge the money that Energy has put forth to our region and put forth to Vermont. We are Vermonters. We are members of Windham County. But charity begins at home, too.
We are Vermonters, we are strong. Sorry.
For me, I think, while the idea of a cap coming from Maine, we may be in some ways stealing their idea. The idea of a cap is there, but the structure for a cap needs to be ours. And their issues were different. The way the state dealt with it was different. The governor was not involved in Maine. There's been a huge difference in the way Maine and Vermont were structured in the whole negotiations on closing the plant. So I think of what we will come up with as a cap will probably go in a little bit different direction. Don't you, Dale?
I do.
I think it has to.
I think that's a valid point. I think that, we're not trying to stand in ceremony and say, we want to be like Wisconsin. All it is to say, what my intention was to bring to you, to the board, was the value of the cap, not to emulate what Wisconsin did in any stretch, because, like Steve pointed out, it's an entirely different scenario that we are here than we're up there.
Right.
It's just, let's bring the value of exactly what a cap can do, and I agree. I think that it's yours to formulate and then figure out where is it going to fit best with the community.
Yeah, the cap here would be organic to Vernon.
It would have to be. It would have to, because we're not Maine.
No.
We're totally different, and some of the issues they dealt with have been taken off of our plate by the state, but there's issues that we need to deal with that they maybe didn't deal with in their cap, but we certainly can in ours. So, but I think that there's a value to talking to the towns who have closed their plants and finding out how they did things, how they would like to have done things different if they could get a day back. What would they have done different? Because I think you learn an awful lot from that. Instead of reinventing the wheel and making our own mistakes and falling on our face by ourselves, we might as well try to not fall on our face quite so many times by watching what they did.
Or at least fall on our faces in a new way.
The thing is I don't believe there's very many communities at all that have had to go, have had a nuclear plant decommission in their community and go through the same experience twice.
Well, we're also the first one to go to Safe Store. So that's new too, right?
Now, there's a lot of plants in Safe Store.
I'm talking about the plants that we've been talking about.
Oh.
Wisconsin's not in Safe Store. Didn't they decommission completely? There's 5, I think, that are in Safe Store, but I don't think any of those were the ones with the caps. I know Maine did. Maine decommissioned. Roe decommissioned. I thought Wisconsin did too.
But my point, just to buttress it, I think that Entergy, and whoever approaches them would have a vested interest also in just being involved in that, because I think it would do a huge thing, for the public persona and saying, okay, we want to cooperate, with, because there's such a negative issue out there. It's almost like the dichotomy. You're either for it or against it, you know, there's got to be a way to bring people to the middle to say, you know, it's not that bad, you know, and understand what's going on. And Entergy, I would think, would have a vested interest in bringing, you know, their public, you know, persona, you know, in a better light.
And I think if we carefully pick the people,
Yeah.
we could do that. I mean, there's people that you're going to put together and they're never going to agree no matter what. If it's raining out, they're going to disagree as to whether or not it's raining out.
Right, I think anybody involved needs to be pro Vernon. I mean, pro our community.
Yes,
I mean, they don't
absolutely.
necessarily
Yes.
have to be big fans of nuclear power, but they should be pro our town.
If it's going to be something that we're actively involved in, absolutely.
I agree. I think you've got to be careful about picking the people, but I think you also have to be careful about making it so one-sided that it doesn't appear to have a balance and a balanced flavor.
I think it should have a diversity, absolutely.
You could get some
But
people that are so
not too
off
far.
Yeah, but if,
in the
you know,
direction that
Vernon's
they'll just-
sponsoring
they'll
it, then
just
I
be-
don't want somebody from.
Well, pretty
That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah,
you can have,
I agree.
you can have,
Diversity is one thing, yeah, you definitely want pro-Vernon people.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. That's
and
exactly
you want
right,
people that
yes.
are open-minded, even though they believe one way or another, they have to be open enough to listen to the conversation.
Yes.
We're never going to change their minds,
I have to.
in many cases, but at least open to how we can come to the middle and come to an agreement and go forward to the best for our community. So, you're very welcome, thank you. Anything else, members?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I thought you were
Oh,
showing
no,
me
I
something.
just wanted-
Second.
It's been moved in second to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. And everybody,
Adjourned.
please be careful driving home tonight. It could be slippery.
Thanks, Mom.
I know you don't like driving.
She's not driving, she's with me because she doesn't like
I
driving
stopped in
it.
this afternoon and said, I'm not
Have you
driving.
heard of the Duluth?
I don't mind being
Loves
with this.